Originally, I wasn't supposed to be on one of these chairs. I am not a millennial. I've aged out of the young adult category. Thank you. Yeah, I made it. But as we kind of started to solicit young adults and millennials who could answer and respond to some of these disconnections that Kinnaman talks about in his book, we had a young adult who really wanted to be able to talk to two of those disconnections that are about the idea that oftentimes young adults perceive the church as repressive when it comes to sexuality and exclusive when it comes to others who maybe don't share their beliefs, or others even, as Kinnaman often talks about, who are of different sexual orientations, is one of the things that Kinnaman talks about. And the truth is that we struggled through 5 or 6 revisions of what he might be able to say that might be able to be heard here in front of this huge group of people, and what might be helpful, and what might not put him in a position that might affect his relationships within the annual conference. And in the end, actually just this week, we came to the realization that we couldn't quite get to that place. And I think this is the fact that I'm here talking is actually a demonstration of this disconnection that Kinnaman talks about. These issues are so hot for us right now that we don't even know how to talk about them amongst ourselves. And that because of that, young adults who want to be able to have conversation and engage about this, and who might come from a different perspective than you do, struggle to find places where they can engage faithfully and honestly with sort of where they're coming from. And so part of what I want to share with you today, from not so much from a personal perspective, but just from a perspective of what I understand and have heard and know from young adults and millennials in this area, is that this isn't I don't want this to come off as about the issues of sexuality that we're dealing with in the church directly, because this is about who young adults are and what it means to engage them faithfully in conversation. But if you're going to engage, if we're going to faithfully engage in conversation and in faith and invite them to faith in Christ, one of the things that's really just important to understand about young adults is that for many of them, they just come at these issues from a different place than previous generations. And the generational shifts have happened so fast that many of us are left at a loss of even to know how to talk about it. I read, as we were preparing for this, a survey by the Pew Research Center that came out in February, and it was talking about generational differences about same-sex marriage, for example. And it was really interesting to see how wide of a gap there is. When you looked at folks who were over 68, the statistics were about, in the general population, about 35% of folks approved of same-sex marriage. But when you looked at the millennial generation, it was 70%. I mean, that's a huge gap. When they asked the question for young adult millennials who had disengaged from their faith and faith communities of why that was, 30% of young adults said that one of significant influences for them was the way that they've seen their friends be treated within the church and excluded from the church. This is a difficult reality that, again, just the fact that I'm the one sitting here and not a young adult speaks to how difficult this is to talk about. And all I guess I want you to hear today is that it's not something here to debate that issue or to say that you need to believe differently, but that in order to engage in ministry young adults in authentic relationship, this is a reality that you have to understand. And that what young adults are hungering for and longing for as they watch their peers, this relational generation that values community over rightness and looks for community and diversity and hurt for friends they see who are hurting, for a generation that is very comfortable talking about sexuality, but when they come into the church feel like there's a closed door about that conversation, is that part of what young adults are looking for is that they're watching the way that we treat others, and that our witness is hurt when they feel that we are hurting those people who they love, and that they're looking for places of deep conversation. That isn't to say, again, that you have to change or rethink what you think, but we need to find ways to be in authentic conversation across our differences. And if we can't, there's a large part of this generation for which the conversation will never even begin. The person who was doing the presentation, who wanted to do the presentation, ended his presentation with this, and I want to end with his paragraph. He said, as I ruminated on Kinnaman and his understandings, I wondered if part of the disconnection for us as young adults is because honest conversations about sexuality and about our experiences of that and our perception of that and the way that the church deals with that are never often even brought up. That we struggle to find a place where we can have true dialogue about these things. And it seems that the church has some barriers to starting conversations that young adults are already in. And it's our joint responsibility to learn how to have conversations that bridge this gap, that we can move faithfully ahead together.